Hi, welcome to another live tasting. Tonight's tasting is really exciting. They're all exciting, let's face it. But for tonight's tasting, what I'm going to look at is 3 Pinot Noir. But how they came to be together in a collection is really interesting. So in January, which I must say seems like an absolute lifetime ago now, we went down to Central Otago to the Pinot Noir celebration. So I went down there, took Anthony, who works in our office with us, and he helps me with product and marketing, so he came along. Zane, who manages our Victoria Park store, came along, and also Regan, who looks after our fine wine at Vic Park. So the 4 of us headed off to Central Otago in January and attended a Pinot Noir celebration. We started it with, I must say, a really long bus ride, and we've already all in the feedback said, bus ride too long. Anyway, moving on. Really long bus ride, and went out to Ripon and listened to some beautiful poetry from local poets. Absolutely amazing, and certainly opened my eyes to another whole side of Central Otago. So we did that, and then the next few days involved visiting wineries, tasting wine, and was very much focused on getting us out and around the sub-regions and having a look at sub-regional Central Otago. So fantastic 3 days, a whole heap of things that, although I've been to Central Otago a number of times, I'd just never done before, and the entire experience was amazing. But on the second day, we started with a tasting to look at 40 or so different producers around Central. And it was up at the top of the skyline, and we're sitting in the gondola on the way up, and I said to the team, I said, this is a whole heap of fun, and yeah, it was great fun. I said, but we've got to do a little bit of work while we're here. So the challenge I put out to everyone was, I said, as we taste this morning and we taste over these few days, I want you to come up with a list of the 12 wines that are your top picks from what we've just tasted in Central Otago. So anyway, they were all very keen, or just illegitimately said yes, I'm not sure which, perhaps a bit of both, hopefully. So they all agreed to come up with 12 wines. Got back to Auckland, and everyone put together their list of 12 wines, and I lined these lists up and looked at them and went, we're clearly at the same tasting, because the similarity was probably about 10 of the wines were exactly the same on all of our lists. And then there was ones that I went, yep, that's Regan's favourites, yep, that's Zane's, and that's Anthony's, so could completely understand it. But overall, the consensus was there. And what we've then done is we've taken those 12 wines and we've popped them into our wine letter, which is due out in the next couple of days, and written a review on the whole event and on our 12 top wines. They actually put a really neat case together, which you can purchase of all 12 as well. So that's why these particular 3 wines are together tonight. These are 3 of the wines that the team collectively said, hey, this is the top of what's coming out of Central Otago. So we have to start with the Rockburn Pinot Noir. So this is Rockburn's 2018. And if you've tuned into one of the tastings that I did during April, you'll know that I talked about this wine then. Yeah, I do really like it. So it's no coincidence that it's come up twice. But it's also a wine that the team really liked while we were down there as well. So I'm going to give that one another go, and better to talk about it with some wine in my glass. So I'll just pour that there. So this is 2018. 2018, we've actually got 2 wines from that vintage tonight. Really beautiful vintage, yielded probably quite an easy crop for the winemakers, if they're honest about it. It was, it's not one of those challenging vintages where you wish that it hadn't started and you're really pleased when it finishes. It was a great year, beautiful fruit. And when you listen to Malcolm talk about this vintage and, what did he do? Tell us about it. He says, oh, really, I took a hands-off approach and didn't do a lot. And that's really the story of this wine, is that it does let the vintage and the fruit and what came into the winery sing. So it's Gibston and Parkburn, predominantly Parkburn, but there is a higher percentage of Gibston in it this year. So I'll just have a little bit of a taste of this. Yeah, it's great. It's lovely actually now that it's sat in the bottle for a little bit longer, and I think actually it's more open tonight than it was at the beginning of April when I looked at it. It spent 10 months in French oak, and 33% of that was new French oak. There's also a little bit of whole bunch in there, which I think is really contributing to the texture of that wine. I think it's, it's a quite an elegant style, but then it's got that lovely structure, and it's got that sort of fresh, vibrant acidity, which I always associate with the Gibbston sub-region down there. So that's the Rockburn to start with. The next wine I'm going to have a look at is the Maude. And if you're familiar with Maude, you're perhaps looking at this label and going, that's not Maude. So they do have brand new labels. And I think when you see the entire collection together, absolutely fantastic job that they've done with the design of these. So this is the 2018 Maude. Now, the previous vintage of this actually won a gold and a trophy, and actually took Wine of the Year at the New Zealand International Wine Competition. So this release is very much anticipated and is going to live up to everything I think that the previous vintage did, and probably then a bit more. So it comes from Rockburn and Queensbury vineyards in central Otago. Just have a little look at this one. It's really interesting, and I think actually these side by side, and all three of them together will do this, is they're showing the sub-regionality in Central Otago, which, as I said, was the underlying theme behind the Central Otago event this year. And what I love about the Maude is you taste it, and there's that lovely sweetness of fruit, and then you wait, and there's a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then it sort of explodes on your palate, and then there's this ethereal sort of nature to it, a finesse and an elegance that just lingers. Beautiful wine. Hopefully. Yes, it looks like we're back again now. Sorry about that. So that's the Maude Pinot Noir with its new label there. The last one that I've got to look at is the Prophet's Rock, and this is the Cuvee Antipodes. And the wine I've got tonight is actually the 2016, so it just happens to be the one that I had at home, but it's actually the 17 that we've got coming in for the next month's promotion, or for this month's promotion. So Prophet's Rock is a winery that was established in Bendigo. They've actually got 2 different blocks there now. But this particular wine, which I'll show you what the label looks like there, this wine is actually a collaboration between Paul, who owns Prophet Rock, and Francois Millet from Comte de Vogüé in Chambon-Masseny. And Francois and Paul have had a long friendship, and it was actually in 2015 that they had the inaugural release of this wine. And before that, sort of leading up to it, Francois had agreed to make a wine in New Zealand, and it said to Paul there just had to be one condition around it, and that was that he could make it using all the same tools that he used in Chambon-Masseny, and that he could make it in a Burgundian way. So this is a really unique wine because this is New Zealand fruit, so Bendigo, made by a Frenchman, made his way in New Zealand. And he comes to New Zealand twice a year now to oversee the production of this wine. And it's certainly a wine that when it was first released caused an absolute storm around the world, and has continued to be followed since then. It's very, very good. And yeah, I think every time I look at this wine, it's the perfume that gets me. I just could spend the rest of the night sitting smelling this and forgetting to actually have a taste of it. But I will. I'll go on and taste it. Yeah, really impressive wine. I think You got a denseness of fruit that I associate with the Bendigo subregion, but then you've got this lovely texture and layers of flavour, and the complexity that brings to this wine just really lingers right through to the end of it. It's actually had a lot more time in oak than the other two, so 17 months, and been made in a very hands-off way as well. So 3 really different wines: the Rockburn, the Maude, and the Prophet's Rock Cuvee Antipodes. As I said at the beginning, these 3 wines are part of a 12 wines that we collectively as a team picked as our favourite wines from the Central Otago Pinot Noir event in January. The other thing that you'll find in our wine letter, as well as these 12 wines, is also a review on the region and our findings down there. And one thing that sort of came through loud and clear as we tasted, when we thought back to some of the earlier Pinot celebrations that we went to, where, you know, we'd go around and we'd compare our notes at the end of the day, and we'd sort of be sitting there going, yep, we could range that one in our stores, we could stock that one, we could stock that one, but the overall quality, there wasn't sort of a consistency where we went, all of these are great. Now it's a case of going, the overall quality in Central Otago is just world class, and we should be very proud of that. And now it's a case of going, how many of them can we fit in the store? So completely different to where the region was in the past, and a delight to be able to go there regularly and taste. So 3 great wines make up a case of 12 though in our stores, so do go and have a look at those. They'll be online in the next couple of days. Thanks very much for joining in tonight. There's another tasting tomorrow night, and I'll be back next week, same time, probably the same place, who knows, tasting some more wines from what we've got in store. Thanks, have a good night.